This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, our very special guest, Armin Navabi. He's an Iranian-born ex-Muslim atheist and secular activist. He's the founder of Atheist Republic, and he is the author of Why There Is No God. He's also a lot of other things, and we're going to let him introduce himself a little bit more. But first, Armin, what an honor to have you on the program.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Armin. Is there anything I didn't mention that you would like to mention?
Just maybe also that I'm a co-host at a podcast called Secular Jihadists.
Fantastic. And where can people find that?
I'm on YouTube, on any podcast app that have iTunes, Pocket Cast, Google Play, any podcast app that they have. If you just search for Secular Jihadists, it's basically me and another ex-Muslim, Ali Rizvi. We talk about Islam, religion, politics from an ex-Muslim perspective.
Fantastic. Armin, look, it's fantastic. We've gotten you on the show. I want to thank my producer so much, Annie Cyrus, that's always, helping to bring on such fascinating and important guests. And Armin, you have such a profound and incredible message, such a fascinating also life story, if those are the words to use. I need about 10 shows in a row with you. But tonight I want to focus in especially on your background. And I want to focus in on the terror of Islamic hell. And when I was reading your story, and I was also watching your videos, let's begin with that. Armin, you tried to commit suicide, if I am correct, at the age of 11 or 12, correct?
12.
At the age of 12. And give us the background to that. You grew up within the Islamic environment, Islamic religion, and you were just petrified by the reality, or I would say by the myth of Islamic hell. Tell us about it.
Right. Yeah. From a very early age, even before going to school, once I learned about hell, I was always worried about ending up there. And I remember my aunt specifically tried to convince me that only the worst of all people will go to hell. So that calmed me down until I went to school. And then I learned that my aunt was wrong. Most people are actually going to end up in hell. Even most Muslims are going to end up in hell. And based on the specific details that they mentioned, I was convinced that my parents are going to end up in hell because they did never pray. They never fast during Ramadan. My dad drinks alcohol every night in front of BBC. When we go to, every movie actor that I know on TV was not a Muslim, so they will go to hell forever. My parents will go to hell for thousands of years, but all these other people around the world, the BBC reporter that my dad is watching, he's going to burn in hell forever. And I was terrified about all these people that are burning in. I remember actually in school, I tried to convince my religion teacher that my dad doesn't deserve to go to hell because he's a doctor and he saves a lot of lives, and he sometimes does it for free when they can't afford it. And he said, yeah, but if he doesn't pray, he's committing sin against God, which is more important than sinning against man. And okay, what if I pray for, and they told me that I could pray for them. But then I remember he took out a pen and pencil. Let's count how much prayers he has missed. And he basically convinced me that there's no way that you could catch up all the prayers that he has missed. In Islam, the way we were taught in Iran is that, later I learned that it's different in Christianity. In Christianity, you're born with sin, the original sin, right? But in Islam, they teach us that you are born pure, you're born sinless. And you only start committing sin when you hit the age of reason, because their logic is that a child cannot be sin. How could a baby be doesn't have the capacity of knowing what it does be capable of sinning? So you're not sinning until you hit the age of reason. And they told us that for boys that's the age 15, for girls that's age 9. And before they told us, because they lied to us, I think, because they told us this is because in Islam women are considered smarter. They tried to pull it off as like a feminist thing, but later on I learned that that actually has to do more with the age of marriage rather than them thinking women are smarter. But then, so basically what happens is that whatever you do before the age of reason doesn't count as a sin. The angels that you have on both sides of your shoulder, they start writing things down. One of them starts writing the good deeds, the other one starts writing the bad deeds, but they start writing once you hit the age of reason.
Which is 15, right?
For me as a boy, that's 15. So I ask basically, so what happens to you if you die before age 15? Well, you go to heaven. And then I just put 2 and 2 together. Like, then why wouldn't I just kill myself and just go to heaven? Because if I don't die before the age of reason, there's a possibility that I'm going to end up in hell. But if you die before age 15, then you're guaranteed heaven. Here's the thing, though. Suicide is a sin in Islam. But not if I do it before age 15. Nothing is a sin before age 15.
Armin, one second. Sorry. So just, when I was listening to your story, and I've also studied a lot of this stuff, it must be so terrifying. And also perhaps we'll have time to discuss, like, for instance, in Christianity, we have our Savior, we have Jesus Christ, we have our redemption, and we can sin, but we atone. In Islam, I mean, for a young kid, and you were talking about in one of your videos, if you miss one prayer, if you have one doubt of Allah, I mean, it's just frightening. Even there's all these little things that you go to hell for.
But I'm gonna challenge you on that if you don't mind. What I would grant you is that in the Quran, the way that the hell is described is a lot more terrifying than when I read it in the Bible. I mean, the Bible still has worm eating your eyes and all that stuff, but in the Quran, it keeps mentioning like pouring hot lead on you and your skin burning and then reappearing and then burning again. So it's very graphic and it goes into very detail and it's very terrifying. But I do think that when it comes to fairness, maybe in Islam, it's a little bit makes more sense to me. But both of them makes no sense to me. But I'll challenge you on this, right? First of all, when it comes to atoning, both of them have that. In Islam, you could also ask for forgiveness and you're forgiven. For me, this is what people told me. Like, why are you worried about hell? You could just ask for forgiveness and you're good. I was like, yeah, unless I completely go the wrong way and I end up an atheist like I did right now, right? So my younger self, if he saw me today, he would be terrified of what I have become today.
Right. Armin, 1 second. I'm sorry to interrupt, but also in Islam, if you die in jihad, that's another way of avoiding hell, right?
Right. Yeah, I'll get to that as well. But the part that, all right. So, okay. I don't know which one to say first, but here's what I'm going to say. So, if you die as a child, if you die before 15, you go to I asked him, so why wouldn't I just commit suicide? And I was so shocked that other people didn't think about this loophole. This was like an obvious loophole in front of me that I could get guaranteed heaven. People said like, well, if you die as a child, you didn't earn heaven. You're going to go to the lowest part of heaven. Like they said, heaven has many layers. There's highest part, which is reserved for martyrs, which is the best part of heaven, which is where Muhammad is. And I will go to the lowest part of heaven, which is, I thought to myself, I don't care even if I get a parking lot for eternity. As long as I'm not burning, I'm good. So the reasoning didn't make any sense to me. But you're right. The highest part of heaven is reserved for martyrs. And if you die as a martyr, you go to heaven, and you don't even have to wait till Judgment Day, because the rest of us, when we die, we go to another place according to our teaching, and we wait for Judgment Day, and then we'll go to either hell or heaven. But the martyrs, they get a fast pass. They get to go to heaven before everyone else. With regards to atonement, in Islam, there's two kinds of sin. In Christianity, there's one kind of sin, and you ask for forgiveness from Jesus, and you're forgiven. In Islam, there's sins against God, and sin was Islam that we were told. I mean, there's going to be Muslims listening to this like, that's not what I told me. Okay, this is what they told us in school, in our Islamic school. There's sins against God, they're sins against man. And if you sin against God, you need to ask God for forgiveness. And you have to really, really, really mean it, and God will forgive you. For example, sins against God is like not fasting, missing a prayer. Sin against man, you can't buy. If, for example, if I go randomly punch somebody in the face and go to God and say, ask for forgiveness, that's not going to be forgiven unless that person that I punched in the face forgives me, right? So that's a little bit better, I think, than Christianity. You could tell me if you disagree with me, because I think in Christianity, you could basically do a lot of harm to people and then bypass them, go directly to Jesus, and then you're forgiven. In Islam, the person that you harmed has to forgive you before God forgives you. Both of them don't make sense to me, but this is something a little bit more logical, I think, even though Islam is completely nonsense. This part of it is a little bit more because both of them, the whole idea of atonement doesn't make sense to me, because as an atheist today, knowing there is no afterlife, a lot of people are like, oh, then you would be immoral, right? You don't care about heaven or hell. But I was like, no, if I could do anything and then ask for forgiveness, then that gives me the license to do whatever I want.
Armin, absolutely, my friend, and thank you. And perhaps we'll have to save a theological discussion for a future show. In general, I would just say at this stage that, Nani Darwish has documented a lot of this and written about her journey, that Allah in Islam is a very angry God. And whereas in Christianity, there's a very loving God, and God is also a God of love and also a God of forgiveness.
Well, I would disagree with that a little bit, but unless you don't want to get into that right
now. Let's save our disagreement for a future discussion, okay? But just for now, so this hell that's weighing on you at your young age, you did something at the age of 12 and ended up in a wheelchair.
Right. So basically, I decided not to gamble eternity. I decided to get the guaranteed place in heaven rather than try to play my luck. And I basically, when I was in school, I jumped out of the window and landed on concrete floor, and I broke both my legs, my left hand, and I fractured a bone on my back. And I would have tried it again many, many times if I didn't see what it did to my parents. When I woke up in the hospital, I saw my mom pass out. I saw my father, that I thought would never saw cry before, cry in front of me. I remember my dad asking me if I feel this. He was trying to see if I got paralyzed, and one time I wasn't answering him, and he slapped me in the face and said, "Armin, do you feel this?" And we both started crying at that point. It was so horrific, and that's the only reason why I didn't try it again. And that's when I eventually did turn 15, I decided to take Islam seriously and be a very good Muslim to avoid going to hell, because I didn't manage to kill myself. But if I knew back then that I'm going to become an atheist today, I would have tried it again 100 more times, because this is exactly what I was afraid of.
Armin, so you became ultimately an atheist, which is very dangerous in Iran and also in Islam, and you met many other atheists, and today this is part of your cause, part of your belief system, and it's intertwined with also your battle against Islam, correct?
Right. And I can't, when my mom got cancer, I couldn't go see her, because if I went back to Iran, I would be hanged for becoming an atheist. But one thing I noticed that there are a lot of Christians, atheists, and Muslims that, even though they're not, not atheists, a lot of religious people that are kind enough to see what we're doing as something good, because even though they might not be atheist, even though they might be Christian or Muslim, they're, many Muslims don't know Islam as much as others, right? But there are many Christians and Muslims, even though they're not atheists, they don't think that what is happening to people that are leaving Islam is fair. And they do think that they need support. They do think that they need a community, and not just people that are leaving Islam. A lot of people that leave Christianity, a lot of Christians agree that they shouldn't be demonized, they shouldn't be harassed, they shouldn't be ostracized. And we are basically a community of people that are trying to tell people that we exist. There are people that change their opinions. This is not hatred towards you. We just don't think, we completely disagree with Islam or Christianity, and we think these are not good ideas, but we don't have anything against you as people. We just disagree with you on whether these are good ideas or bad ideas, and we don't think that we deserve to be attacked or demonized or threatened or murdered or tortured just because we simply disagree with you. If we can just talk about it, if you want to talk about it. And a lot of people think that, why would you have a community for atheists? You guys don't believe in anything. Why would you have a community of people? First of all, people that say we don't believe in anything. No, we just don't believe in God. There are a lot of other things we believe in. We believe in many things. Just your God is the only thing that we don't believe in that brings us together. And the reason why we do need to come together is because the rest of the world is against us. Lack of belief in something doesn't make sense for people to build a community around it unless the whole world is against you simply for the fact that you don't believe in something. Absolutely. That's why
I would just interject, I mean, that you are in the West now, correct? And yes, it's built on the Judeo-Christian tradition. And when Jesus Christ said, "Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God," the foundation in the Judeo-Christian tradition and in Christianity is separation of church and state. So you can be against Christianity and the notion of God in the West, and you're safe around Christians and Jews. Whereas in Islam, your life is in danger because there is no separation between mosque and state.
Well, I mean, so what this is going to be a huge other topic if we want to talk about it. But the thing is that in Shia Islam was supposed to be separate from the government until Khomeini came and introduced his version of Shia Islam. Shia Muslims were supposed to wait for Imam Mahdi to come back, the 12 Imam, before they took a government role. But when Khomeini gained power, he decided to change Shia Islam, which is Khomeinism branch of Shia Islam. And he said Vilayat Faqih could hold government in place of the 12 Imam until he comes back. But regards to Christianity or Islam, I do think that when people think, whenever people think that they have the opinion of the creator of the universe, when people think that they speak for God and they know what God wants, then the opinion of us mere human beings become irrelevant. And that's the danger of people speaking on behalf of a deity. And that's why I think I do agree with you that Islam is way more political than Christianity, and it gets involved in politics and government way more than Christianity. But as a whole, I think the notion of people having a line to the creator of the universe and being able to know what it thinks and commenting on his behalf is a very dangerous notion.
Okay, Armin, I hope you'll come back on our program and we can continue this very important, fascinating discussion. Just to wrap up here, is in one part of one video that you did, you mentioned, and I think this is such a crucial point, that a lot of people, non-Muslims in the West, stress very much the danger of Islam to the Western world, to the non-Islamic world. And of course you agree with that, but you stressed, let us not forget that Islam is also a danger to Muslim and oppresses Muslims and hurt Muslims because Muslims are causing harm to themselves in believing in Islam. Can we finish on your thoughts on that?
Thank you so much for bringing that up. That's a very important point. A lot of the things that people in the West fear that might happen to their countries because of Islam, there are millions and millions of people that are already living under that. There are many people that are being prosecuted for being gay. There are many people that are being discriminated against for just being women. There are many people that are being ostracized or demonized or murdered for changing their opinions or saying something that is un-Islamic. And the number one victims of Islam are Muslims living in Islamic countries. And just because we can't just say these people deserve it because they're Muslims itself. Being wrong about something doesn't deserve you to live like that. Just your opinion, even no matter how wrong it is, you could be a decent human being and have a very wrong opinion, and nobody deserves to live like that. And you know, a lot of people think that we are racist or bigots or anti-Muslim because we're speaking against Islam. But no, the number one people that are being hurt by Islam are Muslims. And if you care about Muslims, you can't be anything other than anti-Islam. If to be pro-Muslim is to be anti-Islam.
And Armin, in order to liberate Muslims, in order to liberate people suffering under Islam, are the liberators Islamic reformers or ex-Muslims?
Ex-Muslims. Reform is basically. I don't know if I could swear on your show. I'm not gonna. All right.
We'll bleep it out. We'll bleep it out.
Reform is just a excuse for people to say first of all, it's sold to the West, not even to Muslims, right? It's basically because Muslim in the Islamic community, the people that actually read the books know exactly what says in the books. The reform is a very fringe. You know how they say there's terrorist groups, Al Qaeda, ISIS are fringe. These reform ideas were the people that says this verse that says you should beat your wife if she doesn't listen to you. It means walk towards her. Like they kind of try to change every meaning in the book that it clearly says in black and white that you should beat your wife if she doesn't listen to you, if you fear her disobedience, not even if she disobeys you. That notion will never sell because people can see what the book actually says. This is just a PR move to say to the West that maybe there's a version of Islam that could be accepted. And this is actually very dangerous because if I came to you and told you, like, you know what, let's not throw away Nazism. Let's just look at Mein Kampf and try to read it in a different way and try to reinterpret this book in a way that is accepting. No, there is no place for a book that says that you should kill non-believers. There is no place for a book that says people that didn't believe in a book deserve to be tortured. There is no place for a book that teaches you how to treat your slaves. There is no place for a book that teaches you that you should beat your wife. This is a book that should not be reformed. This is a book that should be thrown in the garbage.
Well, Armin, I mean, all we have to do is just take Muhammad out of the Quran and Hadith, and then maybe things will be okay, right? Okay, that's my sense of humor. Armin, you're a great man. Thank you for coming on the program. Before you go, for those people watching the Glazov Gang right now that are very excited and want to tune into what you have to say and support you, where do they go?
So you could find Atheist Republic on atheistrepublic.com. And if you want to reach out to me personally, you could find me on Twitter on @Armin_Navabi. But atheistrepublic.com, we have linked to all our social media accounts there.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was an honor. I hope you'll be back.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was a pleasure and an honor. And thank you for watching the Glazov Gang. We'll see you soon. Good night.